Welcome back to List Jumbo. What were these people thinking? These flying machines didn't stand a chance. Here's our top 10 list of flying machines that failed. Number 10. The Marquis de Bacqueville's Paddles. In 1742, the Marquis de Bacqueville decided to strap some wings to himself and jump from his mansion. His intent was to soar across the River Seine, a distance of about 600 feet, and land safely on the other side. His landing spot was supposed to be the gardens of the Jardin des Tuileries, but his giant paddle wings, of course, were destined to fail. He leapt from his palace, cheered on by a group of spectators that had gathered. Amazingly enough, he did soar for a bit, but it wasn't long before he lost control and spiraled into the river below. He slammed into a large barge in the river and amazingly came out of the ordeal with only a broken leg and a bruised ego. The Marquis became the joke of the town, prompting him to give up his flights of fancy for good. And although the Marquis's paddles may not warrant the title of a flying machine, his attempt at flying was a definite epic fail, earning him the 10th spot on our list of flying machines that failed. Number 9. Charles Ritchel's dirigible. Number 9 on our list of failed flying machines comes to us from a very accomplished inventor. Charles Ritchel, who held more than 150 patents, is best known for his invention of the funhouse mirror. Like many inventors of his time, he too tried his hand at flight. His flying machine was a one-man aircraft with a brass frame that hung beneath a big rubber gas bag. He installed a small propeller which he used to steer his odd flying machine. In 1876, his flying machine reached a moderate success as he flew it in one of the exhibition halls at the Centennial Exposition in Philadelphia. However, 2 years later, in 1878, when he took his machine outside for demonstration, his flying machine did not fare so well. He took off from a baseball field in Connecticut and was quickly blown off course. His flying machine was no match for the wind, and it was deemed unsuccessful as it met an uncontrolled landing, cinching Ritchel's dirigible at the 9th spot on our list. Number 8. Thomas Moy's aerial steamer. Next up is a flying machine that had pretty serious failure to launch issues. Thomas Moy's aerial steamer, built in 1875, was a tandem-wing aircraft that used a steam engine as fuel. It was 14 feet long and very heavy, weighing 216 pounds. The engine alone weighed 80 pounds. Moy first tested his flying machine at the Crystal Palace in South London. Hopeful, he tethered it to the ground in case it really did lift off. However, given its enormous weight, the steam engines proved insufficient and the poor flying machine just couldn't seem to leave the ground. Moy made many modifications to the machine over the next several years, but was never able to achieve liftoff. A flying machine that can't fly is a fail in our books, earning Thomas Moy's aerial steamer the 8th spot on our list of top 10 flying machines that failed. Number 7. Sir Hiram Maxim's test rig. Mr. Moneybags, Sir Hiram Maxim, made a fortune from his invention of the Maxim gun, which was the first fully portable, fully automatic machine gun. Using his fortune, he turned his attention to flight and built his test rig in 1889. With a wingspan of 110 feet and a weight of 3.5 tons, his flying machine was powered by not one, but two 360 horsepower steam engines. He built a track at his home in Bexley and prevented his flying machine from actually taking flight by fitting it with outriggers restrained by wooden rails. It did lift off, but it took the track with it. He aborted the project claiming that the machine could never actually fly more than a few feet off the ground. He knew a feasible flying machine would need better power-to-weight engines, so he instead turned his efforts to building amusement park rides. His amusement park rides were a lot more successful than his flying machine. Number 6. Leonardo da Vinci's flying machine. We can't possibly compile a list of top 10 flying machines that failed without including the ever-so-famous Da Vinci flying machine. Drawn in 1485, Da Vinci's plan for his ornithopter were very detailed. His design was meant to mimic a bird, and was a complicated device with giant flapping wings. Although his design never left the page, and therefore never actually launched, it did launch the imagination of the public, and he remained obsessed with the idea of flight for most of his life. His design was altered and replicated for many years to follow, but because his complicated flying machine never actually flew, or was never actually built, we're calling Da Vinci's famous flying machine a failure, and giving it the 6th spot on our list. Number 5. The Signet by Alexander Graham Bell. Most famously known for his invention of the telephone, Alexander Bell had a number of other, less successful inventions to his credit. One of these other, less successful inventions is his giant kite-like flying machine, the Signet. Made up of 3,393 tetracells, this strange flying machine was designed at the kite house of the Bell estate in Nova Scotia. It was launched on December 6, 1907, and piloted by Thomas E. Selfridge. The flying machine was towed by a steamship. It took flight for a bit, but because the tow line wasn't released, the flying machine crashed into the water. The Signet was completely destroyed in the crash, but the pilot was rescued and came out uninjured. Nevertheless, a test flight that ends in a crash is not a success by our standards, so the Signet earns the 5th spot on our list of flying machines that failed. Number 4. The Artificial Albatross. The 4th spot on our list of flying machines that failed is an alliterative monstrosity. Inspired by the actual shape of an albatross, Jean-Marie Le Bris built this enormous glider in 1856. To launch it, he took it to a beach and pulled it with a horse facing the wind. Apparently, it flew to a reported height of 100 meters. Garnishing interest from the French Navy, they gave him money to build another one. Jean-Marie built a second artificial albatross in 1868. However, despite the mediocre previous success of the first bird-like flying machine, his replica was not successful. On a test flight, the albatross crashed and Le Bris broke his leg, making the artificial albatross a truly artificial flying machine. Number 3. The Umbrella Plane. In 1910, William Romme won a prestigious contest with the model of an unusual-looking plane. He wanted to design a plane that was completely different than the other planes that were being designed at the time. He achieved uniqueness with the peculiar shape of the umbrella plane. With the financial backing of McCormick and Rockefeller, Romme was able to build a real-life version of his umbrella plane. He was hoping to override the Wright brothers' patents on the airplane, but his first umbrella plane was wrecked by the wind in 1910. In 1911, he tried again, this time in Texas. But again, the wind savaged the plane. Unable to accept defeat, more money was spent on the plane over the next several years, and more test flights ensued. However, the test flights were mostly unsuccessful. In 1913, the umbrella plane basically disappeared, with its flight into obscurity being its only really successful flight. Number 2. The Otter Avion. Second spot on our list is a flying machine that was nothing but a colossal disaster. The strange-looking contraption was built by Clement Ader, and although its name, the Adair Avion, has a nice ring to it, this bat-like machine was anything but successful. Paid for by the French military, this flying machine took Adair 5 years to build. Completed in 1897, the military in Adair had very high hopes for the Adair Avion. It was equipped with 2 engines and 2 propellers, but sadly, it had no real means of actual control. On October 12, 1897, trials of the Adair Avion began at the Satory Army Base near Versailles. Apparently, the Adair Avion crashed immediately. It didn't even leave the ground. The military was unimpressed by the flying machine's inability to fly. They pulled their funding, earning the Adair Avion second spot on our list of top 10 flying machines that failed. Number 1. Samuel Langley's Aerodrome. Top spot on our list goes to Samuel Langley's Aerodrome, an expensive flying machine that was unable to fly. After a few semi-successful small flying machines, the United States Department of War contributed $50,000 in funding for Samuel Langley to build the aerodrome. It was to be a full-scale man-carrying version of a smaller model he had built. His flying machine had a 53 horsepower engine, about 4 times the engine power of the Wright brothers' gas engines. However, its steering capacity was very primitive, and ultimately, impossible. It was launched twice from a houseboat on the Potomac River. Once on October 7, 1903, and again on December 8th. Both times it crashed into the water, and the pilot had to be rescued. The project was abandoned, and to add insult to injury, 9 days later, the Wright brothers' famous Kitty Hawk successfully took to the sky and the rest as well. The rest is history. Thanks for watching, and subscribe to List Jumbo for more top 10s, and check out our previous video on crazy facts about North Korea.